I had 2 children when I came to live here.
And did you have more children while you were living here?
Yes, I had 2 more. And Dr. Mumford came to me here. The midwife delivered it, but he had to come and check on everything, make sure everything was all right and that. Nice man, he was tall, nice-spoken man. I think they all are, aren't they? All had college education. Didn't they in those days? You know what I mean? Only the rich got anywhere in those days, didn't they? The lady over the road, as I say, her mother lived downstairs, she lived upstairs, and she had a baby over there in that there. At the same time, I had my baby upstairs here. And we were holding our babies up, showing each other our babies up the windows, you know, talking to each other across from the bedroom.
The Blitz started on the 7th of September 1940. The nearby docks, the railway and local industry all made Bermondsey a prime target for the Luftwaffe. The second bomb to fall in the Blitz fell at the end of Reverdy Road. Subsequently, 5 houses on the street were destroyed by a German bomb. Dr. Mumford, still at Reverdy Road, wrote in his diary, "The populace of Bermondsey dropped from about 120,000 to 20,000 during the war, but we kept the practice going. Several of our Reverdy Road residents had direct experience of being bombed."
The area siren had gone and we ended up sheltering in a school. Then suddenly they dropped a bomb on the school. Then all we could see was the sky. See, all the debris had fallen on us, and the man my mother was talking to was standing there dead. All my family stood up and not a scratch on us. And yet all the people were dead and pieces of bodies and that, and all the debris all round us. And we stood up off that floor, shook the dust off like is what we could shake off. And not a scratch on any of us.
It was exciting for kids in some way. I mean, I was playing tin can copper with, you know, can with 2 sticks you throw a ball with Wally Betts in Reverdy Road, and we threw the ball, hit the can, and the siren went. So I ran one way, picked up the can and the sticks, and he ran the other way, picked up the ball. We shouted, "See you later, see you at the all clear." We both run home, you know. When the all clear, we came up and resumed, you know.
There is a gap on Reverdy Road, a hole where houses used to stand. One night during the Blitz, those houses were destroyed by a German bomb. At the time, each house was fully occupied. Remarkably, nobody was killed. Keith McLaren was 2 years old and living at number 12 with his parents when the bomb dropped.
Well, this was a house that we lived when I lived with my mother and father, obviously, as a baby and a very small child. Bombed out and then moved just across the road behind us to number 17.
In Bermondsey, the fashion was for families to live close together. Keith's grandparents lived at number 17. 2-year-old Keith and his parents moved in with them. Today, it's occupied by New Zealander Isolde Sommerfeld.
The people who lived in the house opposite, when they were bombed out, they came and lived here. And that's going to be amazing to meet them. They kind of felt that safe just moving across the road, so that'll be interesting to see what they have to say.
It feels very strange to be standing in an empty space where I used to live.
Keith grew up at number 17, living with both his parents and grandparents. Eventually, he got married to Maureen and they had a son called Kevin. They moved from Reverdy Road to Kent in 1965. Today, all 3 of them are coming back to see the house they once lived in.
how little it's changed.
We've just gone back in time, quite honestly. We really have. Hey, Kevin?
Yeah, it's just the same. It's a childhood memory for me, but it looks exactly the same.
Exactly.
Was it what you would have called a working class street?
Yes, definitely. But it was always a nice road.
Yeah, it was.
Wow. Wow, this is different.
Yeah, it's so different.
It is.
So different. We said as soon as we come in, we don't remember it being as narrow.
It seems very narrow out there.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's much
This was
worse.
2 rooms.
Yeah.
This door was just like this.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was the wall.
Yeah.
And this, but it looks smaller. It does, doesn't it?
Well, in this room at one time we had a small snooker table, a dartboard, and a football game. And I don't know how it all got in there.
All in this
in that area there. It was my mum and dad who lived downstairs.
Yeah.
When we got married, we lived upstairs.
Oh, that's nice of you all together.
Yeah.
And before that, my nan and granddad lived upstairs.
Okay.
So when I was younger,
Yeah.
you know, it was mum and dad down here and
Yeah.
me, and nan and
Oh,
granddad
that's-
upstairs.
Here, I always had a funny feeling, the sense of foreboding, shall we say. And if Keith's mum was out and Keith's dad were out, I was petrified. You didn't want to know that, did you? Kevin, when he was about 5 or 6, Keith's dad was looking after him and he wanted something, one of his toys, and he came up here and he saw somebody who shouted at him to go away, and he just literally laid down and put his hands over his head. He told me, but I never ever said to him what I felt all the time.
Right.
I don't feel it now.
I think there are a lot of stories like this down the street, up and down the street.
Yes, well, you know, this is what we've heard since.
Which is maybe they're just moving around, finding a home.
Yes.
More than 1 million homes were damaged in London during the Blitz. Given how close Reverdy Road is to the prime targets of the railway and the docks, it was fortunate that so few houses were destroyed. Across the whole of Bermondsey, the council felt the Blitz damage was an opportunity to continue the slum clearance that had been one of the passions of Alfred Salter. In 1930 in the House of Commons, he'd said, "We intend over the next 20 years steadily and systematically to purchase the whole of the house property and rebuild the borough from end to end." Unfortunately, he didn't get to see the post-war rebuilding work, as he died in 1945. In Bermondsey, Alfred Salter is still held in high regard, and in 1991, a statue called Dr. Salter's Dream was unveiled by the Thames. It shows Alfred and his daughter Joyce and her favourite cat. In the post-war period, Reverdy Road was still fairly comfortable and ever so slightly upmarket, despite having rudimentary sanitary arrangements.
Had a bath hanging out in the garden on a hook on the wall, tin bath, and every Friday, I think it was, all the saucepans would be put on the gas stove to boil the water with, and I'd have a bath then. But we never went in the bath one after another. We all had our own bath water. Like some families, you shared the bath water. My mum wouldn't have that.
Bathroom, no. We used to get the, what's the name, bath, you know, the tin bath, put it in front of the fire. And by the time the last person got in it, it's really black.
Kate's mum and dad had the bath in the kitchen with a cover over the top, but we used to go to my mum and dad's for a bath.
And before that, up Bermondsey bars as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right, not me.
Bermondsey bars.
So it was a bit awkward with Keith's mum and dad to have a bath downstairs, you know, to go in the bath downstairs in their kitchen.
So what was the rent?
26 shillings.
A week?
We paid £1 for upstairs, and your mum and dad paid 6 shillings at the time.
Personal hygiene became quite the thing towards the end of the 1950s. People wanted running water and bathrooms. The move towards cleanliness was given a boost by the 1957 Rent Act. It abolished rent controls but imposed certain new obligations on landlords.
Why did your father decide to sell in 1960?
From what I've heard, it was all to do with the new regulations that were coming in with regards to bathrooms being put into the houses. And basically, Dad couldn't afford to do this into that quantity of housing. And so had no option but to put the estate up for sale.
The West Estate comprises 797 houses, 26 shops, 14 sites, 6 factories, etc. And the total income after deduction of rates is £43,000 per year. It's being sold by auction.
Well, I remember reading in the South London Press that a mystery buyer had bought West Estate and nobody knew who it was. But then it turned out he was acting on behalf of the council. And this caused an absolute uproar amongst the developers because they said it was cheating. I couldn't ever understand why it was cheating, but the council said they bought the estate to prevent developers coming in and all the problems that would cause.
Bermondsey Council knew this was housing stock worth keeping. One change for the existing community was that the system of subletting parts of houses to family members and friends by informal word of mouth was now frowned upon.
Everybody who lived in the street would have one of their family, I would have said, living in the street or letting rooms upstairs to them, which kept the family close. It was only when the houses broke up and the councils then moved this either to the Setchell Estate or the Bonamy Estate where it broke the families up.
There was a fervour to modernise public housing, from the planning of it to the way it was allocated. It was supposed to be done without fear or favour, but in Bermondsey there was a distinct tendency towards keeping local housing for local people.
If you wanted a council house, you'd go around the town hall. You know, given that lots of people moved out of Bermondsey anyway during the war, and there had been lots of empty properties at the end of the war, you had a fair chance.
To you, you are the top party, obviously, yeah, well, but to us, unfortunately, we have to...
As you got to the counter, they asked you what your connection was with Bermondsey. If you had none, they said, reject. Next, and it went like that.
There's a policy to keep Bermondsey for Bermondsey people.
Yeah, oh, definitely, absolutely sure of that. And I think Robert Mellis, the MP, he was accused of that. They said it was pure parochialism, outsiders were kept out. I absolutely believe that, yeah. I absolutely believe it was right, by the way. Everybody in Bermondsey would agree with that policy, and I'm sure it was true, that they kept... You didn't have many coloured people here, did you? Not many immigrant families. It was that policy, So, whereas like Peckham and Southwark, it was all immigrants, here was a sea of white faces, because it was the policy of the council. But not because they were black, but because they were outsiders, not part of Bermondsey. We were insular people. I mean, my grandmother, for example, had never been out of Bermondsey, never been over Tower Bridge even, She'd never been through Rodder's Tunnel. It was considered, why would she want to go there? She was happy here, It was... I mean, it wasn't a paradise, but you know what I mean? People belonged. People were more parochial in those days, I suppose.
The isolation of Bermondsey was dealt a blow when a Conservative